In this video, we're going to talk about question number 2 in the lab of ER diagrams. So this is working with lab 3-3, where we're looking at the ER diagram exercises. And more specifically, I want to look at question number 2. So let's go ahead and get started into this really quick. Now, simply there is a process that we need to follow when it comes to creating ER diagrams. And one of the first things that we need to know is understand our problem. Now, in the previous question, if you look at other videos, I kind of given you a quick step-by-step as to what to look for, and it is actually listed right here. So the first thing is to find out the dimensions, then determine what the measures are, and then you can construct a fact table and also all the appropriate dimension tables. So that was listed in the previous problem. So let's kind of read this problem statement and see if we can identify the dimensions while we're reading it. So in this problem, we want to construct a star schema for a data mart that sells products online and over the phone. And by the way, this is kind of giving me a little bit of a hint what I want this data warehouse to look like, that we want to measure sales. So the data mart they want to set up will track the measures of sales for items for each of the salesperson that it sells to its customer. So that was correct, measures of sales. So we want to know that we're going to already know that sales is a measure that we're going to want to keep track of. All right, let's continue. To track their sales, they need to maintain information about the product being sold, the salesperson selling the product, the customer who purchased the product, the location where the product is shipped to, and then the date when the product is sold. All right. So each product attributes includes its description and category. Each location includes attributes for its name, population, and average income. Customer names and addresses are also recorded. For each other dimension table, include at least 2 appropriate attributes and identify all keys. Data types are required. So looking at this real quick, we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and date actually is time. We have 5 different candidates for dimensions. And remember, dimensions are nothing more than a person, place, or thing. And of course, there can be a little bit of variety added to that as well. But for the simplicity of this course, we're really going to be focusing on these person, places, or thing. So we have these 5 dimensions, and we also know what our measures are going to be. And we said that the measures just a moment ago are going to be our sales. So let's go to an ER diagram. I'm going to move this over to the side and let's kind of start creating some of our ER products. So let's go ahead and create our basic fact table. So I'm just going to say that this is the fact sales table, right? And I know that I'm going to want to have, for every dimension, I'm going to want to have a foreign key in that particular table. So we said we have the product, and of course I'm going to do ID. This is going to be the primary key and also the foreign key. The next item that I want is going to end up becoming the customer. So I'm going to say customer, and this is the ID, primary key, and foreign key. All right, the next item that I want, remember, I'm just wanting to list my dimensions here. So I had, I think I skipped one. I got the salesperson, and they're going to have an ID, and we're going to have primary key and foreign key. Okay, I have to add a new item in. So let me go ahead and slide that here. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and click on adding a few more to this. There we go, and I'm just going to do one more. There we go. I don't want that one. All right. So this other one, let's see, I also said customer already. I have the location ID, and that, of course, is going to be a primary key and a foreign key. The next item is going to be the time date stamp, and I have a tendency to use the period table, and so I'll give it a period ID. Again, this is primary key and foreign key. Now, I mentioned that this all have to have data types. So each of these that are keys, right, are going to have the data type as an integer. So I'm going to also make sure that these are all integers. And that is all that I really need for identifying my data types, is just go ahead and type int for the integer items. Now the last item is going to be our measure. Remember, this is our fact table. And in this particular one, all we wanted to know is the sales, right? And this is going to actually end up becoming money. You can also put a different data type in here as well, and that could be decimal, right? So just based on that information right there, I've already created my fact table. So what I need is a dimension table that will be associated with each of the dimensions here. So I am going to create, looks like I have 5 dimensions that I need to create. So I'm just going to go ahead and list those out. All right. And so let's kind of talk about what each of these is going to be. This is going to be my dim product table. Right. And so the first thing I need is going to be my primary key, which is going to be the product ID, which would also match what was in the foreign key for the fact table, and that's going to be an integer. The next one I need a dimension, and this is going to be the customer. And again, I will have my customer ID, okay, which will be a primary key and an integer. Okay, the next dimension table I'm going to have is the dimension salesperson, and then I am going to have the salesperson ID. This will be a primary key here in this table, and there will be an integer. The next one is going to be the location dimension table, and I will have the location ID, which will be a primary key, and that will also be an integer. And the last one is going to be the dimension period table, right, which I said would be a period ID, and this will be the primary key and the integer. All right, and then I said that for each of these we want to have appropriate attributes. Well, we know that the product, based on the word description, right, each product attribute includes a description, right, and description is text, so that will be var char 25 is a very common data type, and also a category, right, which would also be a var char 25. It could also be an integer if you had like 3 categories or whatnot, but we're just going to go ahead and just give it a var char. The customer, we said we want the customer name, so we'll say customer name, and that will be a var char. I'm going to say 50 to make it a little bigger. And then the other one is going to be the address, right? And this one is going to be var char. I'll keep that at 25. Now, you won't get it wrong if you make the customer name just 25 as well. By the way, we don't need that prefixed. I just happen to put var char 25. The salesperson, right, also has a, let's see, what do we say? The salesperson, we didn't have anything specific in the problem statement. Of course, I could always think of something, but we can also do name var char 50 here. But also, let's see, what would be another thing that we might want to look at with the salesperson. Maybe they have a specific title, so we can always put like a title in here as where var char 25. Now let's go ahead and look at the location. Now I think in the location, I wanted to have some specific things. Let's go ahead and look at the problem statement. No, we really didn't say Um, when exactly the or where issues we want location. So we're going to just basically say the name of the location. And then we might do something like the address. I actually am looking at the product, the thing. And here, actually, each location includes attributes for his name, population, and the average income. So we have to add a couple more items to this. So I'm going to go ahead and put an item here and one more in here as well. And so now we actually need to have the population, and population is going to be a numerical value. So that will be an integer. And then also, what was the other thing we needed to have is the average income. So we'll just type AVG income, and this can be money, or this could also be a decimal with 2 decimal places. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put money in there as well. Now for a time period, we probably want to have a date timestamp. Okay, so I'm just going to put date, and it'll be a date time component, and then I'm going to put week number as just as a secondary thing, and this is going to be an integer. All right, so now we have our entire thing kind of put together, and we can obviously increase this these things with time and location and whatnot. So things are looking really good. We just need to actually connect all these pieces.